Okay, here's a quick video of the power system I've set up for my trailer, and this was something that Wranglerstar had requested. This is when I said you could do an off-grid power supply for relatively cheap. This is what I'm talking about. Now, this one here is, I've got another trailer that I have put another power supply on that is that trailer's in the shop right now, so you can't really see it. But essentially what I have here is I've got five 550 watt panels. I put stuff on the back because I'm putting more. I took a panel off the back, so I'm putting more stuff on, and then eventually I'll probably add 5 more panels on the front of the trailer up here. But anyway, I paid about 40 cents a watt for these panels. And I built the aluminum racks. That probably cost me $600 for the racks, and I just welded them myself. But I'll be, like I said, I'll be doing them in the front too. I really like that it provides shade over the top of the roof. You can't, on this one, my living quarters is not covered yet. I will do that, but in the other one, which I'll upload that video when I get, that one's in the shop right now. But when I get that one back, I will show you exactly what I did with that. But it's a much smaller trailer, but I have 6 panels on it, and then I've wired it to do 240 volt and 120 volt, and it's got more of a traditional wiring pattern. So this is just kind of to give you an idea on the setup. Now, this setup here, even though it's less effective, it doesn't have the power that my new system has. I did this a couple years ago. It was actually more expensive, so the price of these goes down and down and down. So anyway, so what I've got the panels up on top, and like I said, they're 550 watt panels, and there's 5 of them, so I don't know, 2,700 watts coming in. And then I ran them all in series, so I have when they're all going, it's about 250 volts coming through, and you can see that I just ran it down the side of the trailer, and I popped in, just drilled a hole into the trailer and brought it in there. Now, this trailer I was 2,000 miles away from home in the Wyoming, and we pulled into a I don't know, Safeway or some sort of a grocery store, and I had a lady back into the side of the trailer, which don't ask me how she did, but she blew out this panel, messed this all up, and messed up all the guts on this. And then at the time, it ripped this off and messed up my plug as well, and my door here. But anyway, so this was just tied in the same way, but when she hit it, it came off. So this is the outside. So that's all I have. All these are wired in series, so the positive and the negative are hooked together. I have the one strand coming from all the way to the back, just running along the aluminum. You can see all the tie wires up there. Comes down, bumps in, goes into here, and I'll show you what that cable coming out is, because that's where I power the entire RV from that. So we'll come in to the trailer. Put some lights on. All right. So this is my tack room, and see all my saddles up here. But if you come down here, this is a set of bunk beds. So you come down here, and I have a pure sine wave inverter here. But we'll go over this. We'll go over this step by step. Let me change that. It's kind of dark in here. Okay, so this is the only external breaker that I had to buy, and the only reason I bought that breaker is because I wanted to be able to shut off the power to all these coming from the solar panel. So if you take a look at this over here, you saw that hole outside. That hole pops through there. You've got those cables that are kind of wrapped up. Those run in and they connect into this breaker. From this breaker, they go to the PV input. Oops, I'm sorry, I wasn't showing that. So here's the breaker, here's the PV input. They come, those are the wires that you saw outside are coming into this spot, okay? Here's a little cap I keep in here in case I have to take live wires off so I can cover them. All right, so this is a 100 amp charge controller, way bigger than I needed. I think I paid, I don't know, maybe $1,100 for this, but that was a couple years ago. Again, I would never do that again now, and I can show you what I have for the new trailer, but it is a combination charge controller and inverter that is half the weight, does twice as much, and it was $1,300 for the entire thing, and that's all you have to get now. It'll run two separate PV solar arrays without, not counting like a combiner box or anything. It has all the breakers already attached, so you literally just come straight from your panels straight into this one thing, and it takes place of my heavy duty inverter. And I think this is, I believe this is a 10,000 watt inverter. It could be an 8,000 watt inverter. But it takes place of that. And then this one is, like I said, this is the charge controller. It takes place of that. And then I have two batteries that are ran in parallel. These are both, Chinese batteries, but they've lasted for a couple of years. Each battery is 48 volts, and you can see it's 7.6 kilowatt hours. So from there, I just wired this. Now this is not to code, so I came off of my inverter and wired straight from my inverter to a 20 amp plug, but I've actually got a lot more than 20 amps coming through here. I've got no limiters on that, so it'll run a lot more than that. And then I just ran it in heavy gauge wire and welding wire, and then it comes out, pops out there. So it comes off my inverter, pops out there, and there's a ton of efficiency loss. I understand all that, but what I wanted to do was have it set up so that it didn't mess with my shoreline if I was doing anything. And here's my regular panel. My plug comes in and it hooks to this panel. I didn't change any of that. That's just the standard RV 30 amp panel coming in. This has no problem running all this stuff. I've spent, it's unlimited power. You can run the microwaves, you can run the AC, you can run whatever, all day and all night. Now, I will say that I eventually am going to switch this over to the other one, and I like having the ability to run 220 because I can hook it up to a well, any well that runs 220, which my well on my property here, I got a 220 out there that I can hook the well up, and I could run off of that if I needed to. Sort of like if I need it, I've got it. And on my new trailer, I've got up here in the front, I've put in an output, put in electrical outlet where I've got a 30 amp, a 20 amp, and a 220 50 amp, so I can run just about anything off of that. Anyway, so that thick cord that I was talking about, plug that was coming out of that, where I plug in, it comes out here and just ties into this. Now, when I'm traveling, whatever, I just run, I keep the whole thing running. It just runs all the time. In the summertime, I keep the AC going, so I run the AC and, you know, keep the thing so the trailer doesn't heat up any hotter than about, I usually keep it on like 76, because it doesn't cost me anything to run it. Anyway, so pretty simple, pretty easy trailer setup. When I get my other trailer back, I'll record it and show you everything. And that one is more like if you were going to do an off-grid, and because I've got my own panel that I've wired into, and I can show you exactly how that is. But you know, the only thing that I would say is, you know, you might want to buy some additional solar panels so that when you have cloudy days or rainy days or days with no sun, you still are charging. Like on this, with this setup here, I'll typically, if it's overcast or rainy or whatever, I'll typically only get about 300 watts out of this whole system. So if you had a bunch of days in a row where you're just getting 300 watts, you might be in trouble with that. But you know, really, you know, the system that you set up didn't have your panels in, but we're talking with the 2 batteries and the you know, doing it the way that I did it on this system, I'm probably maybe $4,500 for the whole thing. On the new system, it's significantly cheaper because I paid the same price for the inverter and the charge controller combined. So it's just so much easier. The technology is just, I mean, just getting so much better so quick. But anyway, you know, the solar panels are cheap. 40 cents a watt is, you know, what I'm paying for those. And, you know, it's hard to, like, if you want more power, throw more solar panels in. If I were doing a cabin, which I've been thinking about doing setting up, doing a barn dominion down towards the bottom of the property, and if I do that, I'll do all solar. When I built this house, I was going to do all solar, but at the time, you know, that was 5 years ago, and in 5 years, so much changes. But you know, I'm sort of beholden to the utilities company, and the utilities company, this road right here it's all my property, but it's 7/10 of a mile, and I could run above ground utilities, which wasn't terribly expensive, but I've got performance horses and cattle and stuff. I just didn't want a pole running through my yard, so I wanted to do it underground. Well, they wouldn't do it underground. They wouldn't allow me to do it underground. They would only do it underground themselves, and they charged me like $44,000 to run utilities 7/10 of a mile underground, which is just absolutely insane. But now, if I were doing it over today and the technologies were today, for a fraction of that, I could have enough utilities to run this house. You know, I shouldn't say a fraction, but probably half of that, where if I were doing my own racks, and I'd have this entire house off grid. But so for a small project like that shed that you have, you know, you don't have to have grid tie. You can grid tie, but it's not that much more expensive for a grid tie. Maybe $1,000 more total in the whole thing to grid tie it. And you know, as long as you're doing the labor, it's going to save you a significant amount of money.